I'm Shakila, Ms. Audi, Sima, and Gideon. Today we'll be presenting on the SMRT breakdown 2015. Our purpose is to analyze how SMRT managed the issue of the breakdown. And this will be our outline for today. As you all remember, like before this 2015 incidents, there's a 2011. So let us go back to 2011 incident to see if 2015 face the same issue as in 2011. As you know, in 2011, on 15 and 17 December, two train services were disrupted on one of the major lines, which is the north-south line. It's due to the power failure, such as the train third rail were damaged, which supplies power to the train, and it's also due to the misalignment between the train and the power rail. And the affected commuters within that 2 days is 220,000. In SMRT 24 years of operating, the 2011 SMRT breakdown was considered as the worst breakdown. Since it's the first major breakdown happened, the station was kind of chaos. The station staff unsure what to do, and thus the former Minister of Transport described the station as poorly managed, and thus led to some communication failure. So what are the communication failure faced in 2011? They were both affected and non-affected commuters who were frustrated by the insufficient information and with the large crowd. Furthermore, the station staff tried their best to alleviate the public transport problems, but they themselves actually limited by the manpower, hampered by limited manpower and information. And these are the few measures taken after the incidents, like frequent update in Twitter, TV screen installations, and mobile applications. So does the communication failure or issues actually improve in 2015, or whether the measure taken actually helps? We'll find out by one of my team members. Okay, next, people always say expect the unexpected, and 2011 meet its competitor, which is the 2015 SMRT breakdown that happened on 7 July. So what actually happens on that day is train disruptions on the two major lines, north-south and east-west. The worst part is it occurred during the evening of rush hour. And as you can see that the number of affected commuters is more than in 2011, which is around 250,000. And these incidents lasted several hours. As I mentioned just now, 2011 was considered as the worst breakdown. But too bad, 2015 still the title from 2011 as the worst MRT breakdown in SMRT and Singapore history. And now I'll pass on to Audi to talk more about the cause and the issue occurred during the breakdown.
Thank you, Sean. The cause of the breakdown was due to intermittent power surges. SMRT failed to detect the leakages, therefore leading to multiple power trips. The power trip was caused by three factors: faulty voltage relay, damaged insulation on two power cables, and water leakage. So after 3 weeks of investigation, with the help of external experts from Sweden's Parsons, Brikenhoff, and Medensha Corporation of Japan, it was found that the root cause was weak electrical insulation of the third rail insulator. Basically, the third rail provides power to the trains, and so therefore the water was found dripping onto the third rail cover and on the cover. So in the tunnel between Tanjung Pagar and Raffles Place, mineral deposits with high chloride content was found on the cover and the water collected after sample testing. And the high chloride content coupled with the wet environment environment cause the effectiveness of the insulator to decrease significantly. This is the timeline of the disruption on July 7. At around 7:10, commuters started tweeting that the trains has stalled on the tracks and the lights and air conditioning had gone out. So, and then SMRT then tweeted that commuters should expect additional traveling time on both lines because of power fault. Then free bus services were activated at the affected stations, and then SMRT then announced that the trains on both lines were then suspended. At around 9:20, then the east-west line resumed, but at slower speeds, and then an hour later, the north-south lines resumed. Then SMRT then said that the commuters should make alternative travel plans on the next morning because there may be limited services, and free buses continued at the affected stations. So these are communication issues and consequences. There were no immediate announcements and instructions made. Commuters were confused and unsure of what to do during the breakdown. Commuters felt uncomfortable and were in stuffy trains with no lights, air conditioning, and ventilation. So the 2011 breakdown solutions helped. The helpful ones are Twitter and TV screens. The mobile application is not that helpful. For Twitter, it could be referred to for real-time updates because the public updates quite frequently, and commuters could conveniently see which lines are normal or disrupted on the TV screens. And the mobile application is not that helpful because it's not well known to the public and it's not really reliable. Next, I'll pass to Sima to talk about the crisis factors.
Thank you, Avi. For my part, I will be covering the crisis factors that resulted into a massive breakdown in July recently this year. Before I start, let me clarify a possible misconception between SMRT and SDS services. SMRT services operates north-south, east-west, and downtown lines, whereas SDS operates the Circle Line and northeast lines. So, having said that, these companies have difference in managing their respective services. Thus, they are competitors in managing communication in order for communication to flow smoothly. Relaying information is important in transport services. For example, in delay announcements, for example, commuters did not receive important announcements beforehand, and then it will cause misunderstandings at the lines. So there is no clear signage and not enough broadcasts. Next, SMRT is inefficient because of the lack manpower. They are not less responsible for the overcrowding that has affected those lines, and there is a slow execution in security, and it less emphasis on evacuation drills. All these are important. All of these factors are critical for SMRT because it needs to regain the commuters' trust and establish good communication bonding with them. Next, these are just a few facts and opinions from the commuters towards the 2015 breakdown, and they were indeed very unhappy and frustrated towards this about the system, and this should be avoided in the near future. Next, I will be pass the time to Hide to discuss about the lessons learned and
Thank you, Sima. My colleagues have shown to you the problems faced in 2011 and 2015, and we have actually tested the solution in 2011 on 2015 to check on its effectiveness. So we have looked at all these considerations, and these are some of the suggestions that my groups have come up with. So first, probably we should come up with some multilingual signboards, because the signboards in SMRT are usually mostly in English. So these signs that has 4 languages are not that uncommon. You see these kind of signs almost everywhere these days. So it's not impossible to have 4 languages in the sign. And also, why do we need to have 4 languages in the sign is because even though we are English-speaking people, there are elderly who are not as fluent in English. So we assume that with signages in English, these elderly could understand, but they take some time to comprehend what is on the sign. So having multilingual signs in 4 languages would be beneficial will be effective in giving out information to the people, and they can act as quickly as possible. So the second suggested solution is that because signboards has only so much space, and usually the information that they try to pick as little words as possible, and they try to blast the signs, the font as big as possible. So there is not much information you can put in the signboards. So what we can do is that we can have, SMRT really has ushers on the ground to usher people to the nearest bus stops or to the nearest exit. But that is not enough, because by observation you see that it depends on the station. Each station is usually predominantly Chinese and predominantly Malay. So they do not cater to a lot of those foreigners or elderly who may not able to understand the English language and more comfortable with their own mother tongue. So by having a diverse pool of ushers in each station would actually improve in conveying the message to these people, and thus they can usher the crowd quickly as much as possible. As mentioned by my colleague, is that the CEOs between SMRT and SBS has a communication gap. During the breakdown, they were quite slow in trying to deploy the buses out. So perhaps what they can do is that they can gather all the transport companies in Singapore and do a cross collaboration, which can be headed by the Land Transport Authority. And this cross collaboration is not only within the train station, the train companies, but also the bus companies as well. And so in an event of a major crisis, what they can do is that they can share resources, share engineers, and share technical officers to rectify the problem as much as possible to send the commuters back home. So in conclusion of our presentation, what are the significant things that we can learn from this case study? So let's explore certain things that we can learn from this. First lesson that we learn is clear communication. We are in an organization with different departments, so it is vital for you to keep good communication between departments. And that when you are because different departments have their different goals, so when you face a crisis, you should all come together and rectify a similar goal. The second point is that you should always be prepared in terms of communication. So you do not be complacent. Always practice good communication skills with your colleagues, because you may never know when a miscommunication could happen and you can cause unhappiness between each other. So always practice good communication skills. But this doesn't only apply to communication skills, but only to other aspects of your job. So instead of always have a backup plan in case plan A doesn't work. So the third point that we learned over here is about being transparent. The commuters on the train that were stuck in the cabins were not in the loop on what's happening. They just knew that they were stuck in the train. Ironically, people at home actually knew what was happening, and they did not need to know what was happening. But the people in the cabin did not know. So how we can be transparent in our working in our office is that try to tell people who matters, as in your stakeholders, your customers, and your colleagues, so this avoids any sort of agitation or unhappiness within yourself, and you can avoid any communication problem. So with that, I would like to end our presentation, and we will open the floor for questions.